Welcome to the Smart Medical Design Telehealth webinar with Microchip. Today we have Martin Smith and Zhang Feng here with us to share how Microchip supports medical IoT devices and what needs to be considered when designing a medical IoT device to make it smart, connected, and secure. So Martin is a business development manager in Microchip's Technologies Medical Products Group. His career spans over 30 years of experience in semiconductor and systems engineering, as well as marketing and business development. He's developed product in multiple engineering disciplines, including hardware and software designs, as well as leading global technical project teams. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Engineering Technology from Brigham Young University and a Master of Business Administration from the University of Phoenix's Traditional Campus program. Zhang is a Senior Applications Engineer in Microchip Technologies Medical Products Group. He's primarily responsible for technical consumer support and creating reference designs for medical devices by using Microchip's broad portfolio of products. Prior to joining the Medical Products Group, Zhang worked in Microchip's Failure Analysis Group as an FA engineer. He received his Bachelor of Science degree in Electrical Engineering from Beijing University of Technology and his Master of Science degree in Electrical Engineering from Illinois Institute of Technology. So today's event, we're going to include a presentation, and then at the last 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to have a Q&A section where Martin and Zhang will be answering some of the questions that they received about designing medical IoT devices prior to this event. But if you do have any questions during the presentation, you can also include those in the Q&A section. You can find that at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to answer as many of those questions as possible before the end of the webinar. So I'm going to let Martin take it over from here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate it. Good morning to everybody, or good afternoon or evening, wherever you happen to be. Appreciate you all coming and getting on. We appreciate the opportunity here. We wanted to talk about something that's become very important recently, in particular, a lot in the news and stuff, and that's telehealth and what's going on with remote monitoring, drug delivery, and all the things as far as patients being able to do more or get more critical care, medical care in their homes and other places. And so what I'm going to talk about first is kind of what's been going on along the lines, what's happened. There was a lot going on even before the COVID-19 pandemic, as bad as this has been. There was actually a lot going on in the medical field before COVID-19. We were calling it the digital health revolution. And basically you had all the buzzwords, the IoT, cloud, telehealth, wearables, all these things were already creating, new applications at a record pace. We had a lot of activity, big capital, venture capital firms, big high-tech companies were pouring a lot of money into this. And a lot was happening in the areas of moving the medical, model, the healthcare delivery model from the hospital, the clinic, the doctor's office into the home or into smaller rural areas that needed it. And finally, the laws in many countries, including the United States, had powerful incentives for the doctors to show more data, to track, analyze, whether it be from the insurance companies, either the national insurance health insurance companies or the commercial ones, to want more data, and then the doctors, the hospitals are more accountable and getting more information. So a lot was going on before COVID-19 along the lines of what we're calling telehealth. One of the big things was a thing called value-based care. Most hospitals, doctors are starting to have to change from charging fees for each service to actually showing an outcome-based. Basically, as the patient makes progress, that's when they're able to bill. And so there's a change that's happening now in this area. But a huge part of that overall area is this remote virtual healthcare, telehealth, and that goes into areas with secure IoT, connectivity, large data, and a lot of other things we're going to talk about here in today's webinar. Again, pre-COVID. So what that meant, if you break it down a little bit, was there's a big thing about home care, personalized medicine, which is a big thrust in telehealth. And you see a lot of the reasons there: cost containment, new care delivery models. We see quality of life issues for people, when not having to go to the doctors or the hospital as much. They can get a lot of medical care at home, which is good. Another area is a transition from consumer type applications into medical. A big thing is, originally we saw wearables like Fitbits and Apple Watches and things that did commercial type, fun and fitness things. And now some of that same technology is being used by medical companies to monitor patients at home or to see if they're taking their drugs and their medications correctly, which goes to that next area, drug delivery, more and more being delivered at home, alternate things. So again, a lot of this happening before the COVID-19 pandemic. So what we found is that what the COVID-19 crisis, the pandemic has done is amplified all of these needs. They accelerated the pace of development. There's been more effort, more focus into having this happen. So delivery happens in the home versus going to the doctor's office or the hospital, if possible. We saw early on, and we're still seeing a lot with as far as mass social distancing, overall, and getting visits in the home via computer or phone versus going to the doctor's office or going to a clinic or such. There was a huge media frenzy around all the shortages for things like ventilators. And in fact, that was a lot in the news. It was a big spike. The FDA came up with what they call the emergency use authorization, and all kinds of other different methods were proposed to be able to help people with respiratory problems that were brought on by the COVID-19 virus. Many things were interesting though, because many people missed the fact with the media focus on ventilators, they missed the fact that there was a lot of other things happening. These alternative areas were things like oxygen concentrators, CPAP machines, anesthesia machines that can be used for at least some treatment for COVID-19 patients in the absence of a traditional hospital ventilator. And the demand quietly increased a lot of places for other things that people weren't thinking about. Patient monitors, ultrasound machines, pulse oximeters, and of course, thermometers. With any virus, the need for thermometers skyrockets. So again, this is, the things we look at all these types of medical devices and what was going on in the market, and it kind of drives this whole thing for telehealth. This is kind of what the model looks like. If you can see the slide, I think it's up. Yeah, there we go. I call this the telehealth care model. On the left, you see, when you talk about Internet of Things or Internet of Medical Things, the things are basically what's at the end, where you're taking measurements like a blood pressure cuff, a pulse oximeter, thermometer, or some kind of medical wearable tracker that we show here. And these are not just devices, they're actual functions that get integrated and changed around or put into all in one design, or many of these functions put into a single design. All that gets transmitted by connectivity, either wired or wireless connectivity, via a hub of some kind, whether it's a phone, tablet, laptop, a dedicated hub or whatever, and finally goes off to the cloud, where it's analyzed by healthcare providers, insurance companies, family members, even the person themselves tracking what's going on. And so there's a lot of needs there. And again, connectivity, security are a big deal. And we'll talk about that as far as this whole Internet of Medical Things and the telehealth model. A little bit about Microchip and what we're doing in medical. We've been doing medical for many, many years now. Since we started, probably back as a company back in the early 90s, but we had a dedicated medical group that was formed in 2006. And we've been continuous working that since then. So we've got an active and continuous effort in the medical to support medical customers, people who design things for the medical space. We're showing just a partial list of the types of applications Microchip product is in, but you'll see basically covers the whole gamut, whether it be, something that's in a hospital or a clinic, something that's portable out in the field for like emergency medicine, paramedics, home use devices, which is a big thrust in telehealth now, and even implanted devices, like pacemakers and cardio defibrillators that are actually surgically implanted into someone's body. So we've got a lot of experience in this area, and we've been supplying product in what, different countries have different ways of looking at this, but the United States Federal Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, classifies them as class 1, 2, and 3 as far as this safety, critical, and risk, class 3 being the highest as far as life support, life support and support type applications. So again, we play in all those areas as far as supplying product to medical customers, all of our integrated circuits and our solutions. We feel, one of the things that's unique about us is we do a lot of different things along those lines, but we got that experience supporting customers, as I mentioned, our focused medical group. We engage without restrictions, which is what our executive management. So when we engage with a customer, we will engage it, like you said, even with customers who are making, pacemakers and implantable devices, things that are called class 3, which is that next part. And finally, we have an unmatched long-term support policy at Microchip. When customers are buying parts, we continue to manufacture it. We have examples of parts that are well over 20 years old that have been designed 20 years ago. And our custom, I mean, we've updated the actual standard product, but we've kept, that particular one for customers that are buying it. What we call a mask, or in the actual product itself, that revision of the product for them, so they don't have to change and go back to the FDA. So again, we support them over that time. So get this. There we go. Okay, no problem with the slides. Our support model, we've got, local support, factory support, we got support through distribution. We have our medical group. So I won't belabor that point. I kind of talked about that. So let's talk about, first off, what are the needs in telehealth? What kind of products? This is what Microchip helps our medical companies, our medical customers meet their challenges. What are a part of all these different medical devices? We talk about wired and wireless connectivity, whether you're talking about Bluetooth, Wi-Fi for, wireless, you're talking about Ethernet or USB for wired selection. Those are all things that we supply, and we work with our medical customers understanding what are the needs in connectivity. And the wireless portion has grown tremendously during the telehealth part. So a lot is going on in that area. Security is a huge thing these days. It's important. The FDA has been heavily promoting the fact that this is important when a medical device company submits one of their designs for certification with the FDA. So it's in security, we offer a lot in that area too, as far as how do you secure your medical devices from the connectivity and the device overall. Cloud partners, we have development tools and partnerships with Amazon Web Services, with Google Cloud, and with Microsoft Azure. And we have solutions to help people get developing along those lines. I think some of the prizes were along those lines that were in the, so like for AWS and Google Cloud, the little development boards help get started along those lines. And finally, low power and touch for sensing. Again, touch is an important part of medical for many aspects and making it more simpler to use, especially if it's being used in the home versus a trained medical professional at a hospital. And a few other areas, MCUs, we're integrated core independent peripherals, which are ways to have the core go to sleep or do something else while the peripherals are off doing things. So again, reducing the chip count, power consumption, bill of materials cost. Low power, which we're very famous for, and our quality as far as what we do to help lighten the burden for our medical customers. We qualify, or we supply the data for them for their qualification, for quality, for reliability, things like that, to help them as they submit all their design documents to FDA. Functional safety is a big area. Again, looking at the international standards, international medical standards, and overall, as far as how does a medical company meet those standards, and we're doing our part to help with that. We have our compilers that are qualified to the medical as well as other standards for medical design process with 62304 standard, as well as for functional safety for embedded code libraries in the 61508, certification with compiler helps there. And overall, all the things we do help our customers meet the standard, the large medical standard for medical devices, which is the ISO 13485. So additional information on that is located at our website at microchip.com/functional-safety. So what are some of the other things that are critical to telehealth? We talked about some of the devices, and again, the broad range that we offer as far as chip and solutions, integrated solutions for health. There's some other things that are, as far as sensors. I think there was a question that came in earlier about that too, but LEDs and photodiodes are used for things like transmissive reflective PPG, which is basically the way people use in pulse oximeters or the wearable watches that measure heart rate. And that's basically the technology that's widely used to take heart rate and blood oxygen measurements with hospital as well as some of the wearable type applications. Pressure sensors used, and good examples, a blood pressure meter. We see those, and and finally, temperature has been a big one, like I said, with the rise in demand for thermometers. Like for example, a digital, infrared thermometer type of thing, where you're measuring your body core temperature to find out if you've got, if you got a fever and if there's a virus working. So a lot of other sensors, and again, the important part with that is, the interface is important in all of our devices. How the interface, and that's as you design, that's something you run into and utilize. Something that can help with designs, as well as, we look at telehealth, and one of those pieces I mentioned in the telehealth model example, we have design files that are available for download starting at microchip.com/medical, then you can go down for there. If you're looking for basic pieces, whether it be to start a medical wearable device or to measure simple heart rate or blood oxygen, to do temperature measurement, to do portable ECG or wearable ECG, things like that. We've got designs where you can download the files and develop your prototypes. Here's some for drug delivery. Well, there's one for wearable heart rate monitor, but then there's some for drug delivery. Again, whether it be a nebulizer, a micro pump with the MEMS micro pump in it, or how do you secure peripherals? We use a nebulizer to show that also. So again, all those things in there, and we're always working on new ones. So again, this kind of gives you an idea of pretty much everything Microchip offers as far as generically speaking, all different sections. So that's what you got to work for in your contest, and that's what you get to work for as you design medical devices for commercial applications. Is there's a lot. We've pretty much got everything covered as far as what you need for your medical equipment designs. So with that, let's see. We can talk a little bit in depth about each of these demos and what you're looking at and what they do. The first one is a pulse oximeter. Its purpose, as many of you know, is to measure simple heart rate and blood oxygen levels. And the design we're showing here utilizes a DSP engine, one of our DSPIC digital signal controllers. And that takes the place of an expensive analog front-end controller that's used in a lot of pulse oximeter and similar designs. So the idea here is to get the bill of materials cost down, chip count down in your design, so it can be smaller, more power efficient, but still have the computing power, the filtering power you need for this kind of application. John, again, is our senior applications engineer in the medical group. If you'd like to comment, John, as each one of these as we're talking about, we can go ahead and talk a little bit more about this particular demonstration.
Sure, thank you, Martin. Again, my name is John Feng, medical application engineer at Microchip, located at Chandler, Arizona. I'm just gonna briefly add a couple of technical highlights of each demo that we are showing in this webinar. The demo shown on this slide is a transmissive type of pulse oximeter using two light sources, red and infrared. This design uses conventional time division multiplexing, or TDM technique. Two lights are turning on and off alternatively in a fixed but adjustable frequency. Multiple ADC samples are taken during each light on and off period. Such timing scheme can be easily implemented using microcontrollers, rich and flexible peripherals. The digitized data are processed through a series of digital filters, which are generated by Microchip's powerful digital filter design tool and executed by MCU's onboard digital signal processing hardware engine, which is much, much faster than software implementation.
Okay.
All right, that's a major highlight of this demo. Back to you.
Yeah, and this has been either for pulse oximeters or a basis for other integrated designs. Has been very powerful. So again, it's something that's really helpful, and we've even got some suggestions for some of the newer parts that in the original design down at the bottom. So again, a lot of good stuff. And again, all this is available at microchip.com/medical. If you go click through in the pulse oximeter, you can go down and find the design files you can download and give you an idea to how this method to measure heart rate, blood oxygen, and derive things like that. Okay, the next one. Oh, this is another version of the pulse oximeter. But what we did in this case was we did a simple addition of our one of our IoT medical development boards. This particular one we used was access to the Google Cloud, and it was relatively simple. I guess John can speak to it. He did the actual integration. But it wasn't like he had to start over with all of the IoT components. And what that added to the pulse oximeter design in particular was connected Wi-Fi, as well as a secure element, ECC 508 or ECC 608A part, which basically is provisioned to do all the authentication. So you authenticate properly to the Google Cloud. And then the board shows how you can In this case, we're showing how the blood oxygen level and the simple heart rate can show up on the Google Cloud. And again, you can do the same thing with Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure type of thing. So, John, you want to talk more about the IoT boards and some of the things you did with this integration?
Firstly, the pulse oximeter demo board provides standard serial data output interface, serial data output interface, which can connect to any of our IoT cloud development board. So make sure to check out our IoT application website. There are many different flavors of IoT solutions out there. Our website, from Bluetooth to highly secure Wi-Fi cloud development board. It can communicate with all three major cloud service providers, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. And the pulse oximeter simply provide the oxygen and heart rate output and send it to the IoT board. And from there, IoT board take over and do all the authentication tasks that connect, send the data, upload the data to Google, to the cloud website. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, and we, again, really interesting. We've showed this off trade shows and customers, and it gets a lot of interest in the fact that it's really, you know, I mean, with the design files for the pulse oximeter, people have been able to utilize those things for just that particular function. And then the addition of the board for development was a pretty relatively simple task. And they're on the Google Cloud, or they're on Amazon Web, you know, all provisioned, all set up right there. So it's been really a real help for people who are starting to say, I've got medical devices, I need to get them on the cloud. I need to be part of this IoT telehealth thing. That's a big part of it. So we wanted to show that, to show you some of the things available along those lines. And again, there's a website that talks to specifically how, you know, this integration with how it's integrated, as well as the design boards and everything off the microchip.com medical website. This particular heart rate demo is an interesting one in that we were striving to do a single chip way to do heart rate monitoring. And in this case, if you look at the block diagram, you see an MCU, one of our 8-bit MCUs, as well as a UART to USB interface. The UART to USB interface was for the development, you know, to utilize that. But once you go into production, it's not needed. And the only chip on this design is the MCU, which handles simple heart rate measurement. It's utilizing specifically the core independent peripherals I mentioned, which can do amazing things. So we don't need, in this case, a 32-bit MCU and a lot of external devices. It simplifies the design. It's been very good. And this particular one used more along the lines of for like wearable fitness devices, using that technique. But again, it simplifies with only one chip, you know, your power consumption, size of the PC board, you know, battery size for that matter, when you utilize a technique like this. And by the way, we did work with Microelectronica and with this design, and they developed something called the Heart Rate 9 clickboard, which is basically, you know, this board. And the board alone can stand alone. Obviously, you've got to hook up power and such, but you can either, you know, use it with one of their, you know, one of our Curiosity boards, or you can hook it up standalone to see, because it is an MCU and it's doing all the work. So it's quite a nice development. And there's a lot of interesting things about how they use the core independent peripherals and that kind of thing. John, if you want to maybe address some of that and talk about this board or this demo.
Sure. There may be some applications out there require multiple, maybe more than 2 light sources with different wavelengths. The drawback of the time division multiplexing technique introduced in implemented in previous pulse oximeter demo is that adding more light sources while keeping the data processing routine the same result in more time to get measurement from every source. For example, if 2 more lights are added into the system, the first light, such as red LED, will have to wait to turn on again until the processing of the ADC data acquired from all 4 lights in the previous cycle is complete. So more lights added, the more time each light has to wait to turn on again, reducing overall sample rate for each source. Another classic solution adapted in many wireless applications, code division multiple access, or CDMA. So in this technique, systems use code sequence, such as gold codes that have very low cross correlation between each other. This allows multiple users of the spectrum to coexist simultaneously over a single communication channel, where each transmitter is assigned a code. So we developed a similar technique to control and conditioning multiple light sources simultaneously. Our proprietary method uses a known concept called maximal length sequence, a type of pseudo-random binary sequence to generate a code or reference sequence. This reference sequence is then phase shift using phase division multiplexing to drive multiple lights. The same analog front-end circuit is used to conditioning the mixed light signals. The digitized data light signals are recorrelated with each light's driving sequence to extract individual light measurement with minimum interference from each other. In this demo design, we demonstrate this method using microcontrollers for internal configurable logic cell, or CLC modules, to generate a 15-bit long ML sequence. In theory, it can drive up to 14 lights simultaneously. So yeah, so this is that's all for this demo.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's been fascinating to see how this one has been received, and the ideas people are coming up with how to utilize this technique and the core independent peripherals. So it's been really interesting to watch. Next one, again with the spread of the pandemic, it's kind of a simple design, but it is pretty powerful. Is our we have a connected thermometer design. Again with an MCU, we're showing off some touch. How using integrated touch on the board as far as with the MCU. There is a Bluetooth module on there that also, so for connectivity, show off, if you have an app or whatever you want to utilize with that, or some kind of Bluetooth. Using Melexis, temperature sensor for that. And so a nice way to start a, pretty direct connected thermometer design. Huge applications, obviously, during the pandemic as well as other times. So John, anything you'd like to mention on this one?
So this demo uses off-the-shelf third-party infrared temperature sensor MLX90615 from Melexis, and we're upgrading it to their newest temp sensor MLX90632. So according to the datasheet of Melexis' newest medical graded temp sensor MLX90632, its medical version is factory calibrated with an accuracy of plus minus 0.2 degrees Celsius within the narrow object temperature range from 35 to 42 degrees Celsius for medical applications, with a resolution of 0.01 degrees C. So that's the accuracy of this demo can achieve.
Thank you. Again, it's just a basic building block, because not only are people obviously designing thermometers around this, but again, we see a lot of integrated designs where temperature is a part with other things, telehealth units, wearable units. So again, keep in mind, temperature is one thing and maybe part of an integrated design too. It's important, patient monitoring, things like that. So, all right. So the next one is the baseline for wearable devices. We developed something that says, for medical wearables, much like the consumer wearables, we need to know what the patient's doing. A lot of times that'll give us more information as far as, why they're experiencing, any kind of problem, what symptoms they're having, but to know things like, gee, are they moving or not moving? How fast are they moving? Are they going up a hill or being stressed? What's the environment like they're in that may be affecting them? What's the ambient temperature in the room that they're in, or if they're outside? What's the light like? That affects things like sleep. Things like, and this one has one of the things. One of the sensors this particular demonstration has is an accelerometer. So you can put the accelerometer for people who are rolling around in bed and light and do things for sleep studies. So it gives you the basis to do a lot of different things as far as my patient is moving and what their environment is like. And then you can start integrating things like simple heart rate measurement, blood oxygen, things we've shown you already along those lines. So again, a baseline that says, if I want something that's wearable, I want to know what my patient is doing. If I'm a provider, a doctor, or whatever, then I can utilize this to say, yeah, besides the fact I see their heart rate and maybe their heart rate's increased. Well, why is that? Oh, I can see that they're going, they're doing this, they're walking here, they're going up an incline or a hill, something's going on here, and I can better assess what's going on medically with the patient. So, and again, it's connected for Bluetooth. It also has a secure element when you connect to the cloud, so you can authenticate to the cloud or even another device within your design. So, John, what would you like to add to that on this particular demo?
Just quickly add the sensors including this demo, 6-axis motion sensor, BHI-160 with accelerometer and a gyro, an environmental sensor, BME-280 with pressure, humidity, and temperature measurement, and the ambient light sensor. A Microchip Bluetooth module will send all the sensor measurement to an Android app where all the raw data can be visualized in the app. Very cool app.
Okay. Well. Thank you. And again, just a point of reference, I know a question we get a lot is, oh, do you sell these sensors? Answer is no. We do have some temperature sensors we sell, not medical temperature sensors. So basically, all these things for accelerometer, gyroscope, light sensors, medical temperature sensors, things like that are from third-party companies. And so we do utilize those. But if you download the design files and build your prototype based on that, using all the parts, you get something that actually it's working and showing the functions. Obviously, these are not FDA cleared, so for that reason, we don't sell them or do anything else. But we do make these files available to you, so you can build one of these yourself, a prototype, and start looking at it or start integrating different functions together from different designs, different demo designs. The next one is our wearable ECG demo. And basically this is looking at more complex heart rate. This type of demo, when someone wants to design something like this, they're probably going to be using it either in field medicine of some kind, whether it be for an ambulance, paramedics, maybe for field sports medicine. The idea again in telehealth is if you've got somebody out, they're injured or something happens and you need to know a little bit about the cardiac waveform, basically what their heart is doing, more than just how many beats per minute, then the ECG is utilized for that type of thing. And so this is again a way to design, how do I get a simple ECG that at least can be sent back, over, again, it's just connected over Bluetooth. It's got a secure element, so you can connect to a cloud server and be secure. And so how that's done. So again, the application is, say you've got someone who's hurt, and we send the paramedic or someone can send simple data to a doctor or provider, and they can determine whether the patient is basically okay or they need to be brought in so they can use a full large ECG machine in the hospital. So there's a lot of cool things about that. John, you want to go ahead and talk a little bit more about this one?
This demo is a 2-electrode single lead ECG design. The user's ECG signal are captured by a designated ECG sensor. To use the board, user can simply press their fingers on the touchpad on either side of the demo board, or connect medical grade electrode, and connect to your body. The ECG sensor and then send the ECG data to microcontroller for further processing. Demo can display a basic ECG. The demo can display a basic ECG waveform and calculate heart rate, variability, and other artificial measurement. Back to you, Martin.
Good, thank you. And again, I mentioned some emergency use cases, but again, this type of thing is also used in like a home telehealth unit. I know there are people who are sent home after they've been in the hospital for a while or been seeing a doctor. When they have cardiac problems, they're sent home with a monitor. So this is the kind of function could be used along those lines. You know, it would, for a home health monitor, for like a cardiac monitor, a cardiac patient would probably have something a little more complex, but again, you can build on this and make this design more complex. But for things like, you know, in the field, sports medicine or home health, I want to see what my waveform looks like. And if I, you know, think I should call the doctor or not, you know, this is a good step. So there's a lot of places that companies that do build these simple ECG type measurements. You see a similar technique in some of the wearable ECGs that are out there, but we feel this is a good one because we're showing how, not only how to take the measurement, but also how, you know, be connected, how to be secure, and, you know, and the hardware you need in order to set up for your firmware you write and everything you need to get onto the cloud and any cloud service. So, okay, so that was just giving you an idea of some of the designs out there. I think actually, well, let's go ahead and talk about this. We're talking telehealth along the lines of taking measurements, you know, measurements at home or wherever for a patient. The vitals, we talked about things like simple heart rate, beats per minute, the blood oxygen level, blood pressure, temperature, things like that. We're combining those things together in a method that, say a patient at home who has a doctor's visit, the doctor will, you know, interface with them on their laptop or computer and be talking to them. But many times the doctor, nurse practitioner, healthcare provider, whoever will want data. They'll want to get some vital sign data that lets the provider, the medical provider, know that how the patient's doing. And so the concept would be to take some of these, you know, functions, these measurement functions like pulse oximeter and thermometer and ECG and things, and combine them together. And so we're showing a concept here of what that might look like, just to get you a visual idea if you've never seen something like this or really been involved with it so much. So let's want to talk about our vital monitor concept. And starts out, we're just showing what it might be where you've got a basic box, a small box where it does the functions of pulse oximeter, which is simple heart rate, blood oxygen. It does infrared temperature measurement, and it can also do ECG. Some people call it EKG, by the way, if you're not familiar with the ECG term. And it'll get those functions. And so we've got a couple of slides on this to talk about the concept. Before we go into any detail, John, something you want to say about this particular, the general idea here?
As shown in the illustration, user inserts one index finger in next. Martin, next slide, please.
Okay. Oh, there we go. That's a better one.
Yeah, just the user insert one index finger into the pulse oximeter clip and press on the light sensor and two ECG electrode. The other index finger press on to the other ECG electrode mounted on the outside of the housing to complete the measuring loop. Users position waveform generate from the optic sensor, and the ECG sensor should be nicely synchronized. So this is a concept for our next project.
Yeah, so it gets the idea across. This is the kind of thing when you integrate designs that do these functions, you know, type of thing that's what can be done. You can integrate other functions too, but this is just, again, a concept showing you, what's kind of what can we do to visualize that. Oh, here's the other part about temperature. Did you already mention that, or did you?
Yeah, you place this device close to your forehead and making a contactless temperature reading. It's using an infrared light sensor.
So been seeing these starting to come. A few customers we visited, some trade shows. We start seeing these coming. I think we'll see more. It was starting to happen again before the COVID-19 pandemic, but we're gonna see, I think, a lot more of this coming as we go. So again, quite an important area in healthcare these days. This is more of a kind of a block diagram of what something like that might look like. John, if you want to speak to this.
It's pretty straightforward as the This diagram including the analog front end circuitry using our our amplifiers and the DAC, and the central processor is the DSPIC 33 device as the central processor. It will process the optical sensor, the ECG sensor, and the temperature sensor data.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And this is just basically a part, just some parts list. There are many parts that could be used for this type of design, but you know, John gave me a list of, you know, some of the ones that make sense. We're showing in the block diagram, and some of the parts that were used actually for the actual, like for the pulse oximeter design, for example. So gives you an idea that, you know, again, whether it's the CPU, the analog part, security, connectivity, things like that, you know, we're offering, we have those parts, we have that all available to you. Especially that's what I said when we were, you know, when those of you who are involved with the contest, you know, we were asking, say, you know, make it a full microchip design. You can see that, you know, basically everything you need is available from Microchip when you're doing, like I said, for either the contest design, or if you're, when you start designing, you know, or you're already designing out with the medical devices that are going into production. Okay, one other area I just want to talk about a little bit. It's one of the areas that people don't think so much about with telehealth, and that's called the patient compliance aspect of drug delivery. As I mentioned before, patients not only are going to be monitored at home, but they're going to have to be administering a lot of their medications at home also. And so there's a growing way to do that to make sure it's safe and effective for the patient, as well as it, you know, it's done properly, obviously, to protect the hospital and the medical providers from legal liability. So it's an important part of that. So we're going to show some drug delivery type, again, some demos and how we set those up. But keep in mind that these will be connected. You can connect them, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, whatever. And, you know, that will be a design again for telehealth, because the medical provider, the doctor, or whoever is going to want to be monitoring to make sure that the patient uses the device correctly, gets the correct dose of medicine, is using it correctly, that it's safe, and that it's being taken at the right appropriate intervals in time, you know, when they're supposed to take the medication. And so this is some examples of doing that. So the first one is what basically is our connected functional safety syringe pump auto injector. Syringe pumps you've probably seen before, where basically a syringe, or what people call a shot, is given to a patient. This is a way basically that in hospitals still administer these. Some people administer those as far as in some of the newer devices that are being used in the home. You'll have a syringe built in with a case around it, where it administers medication at certain times or when, you know, needed. An auto injector is another interesting device. Many may be familiar with that. For those of you who are not, it's basically something that has a syringe inside. The patient will put it up to their leg or their arm or someplace, hit a button, and it automatically points the needle in, and then by electronic control will administer the medication properly and effectively. So a lot of different aspects of this which are interesting. Again, it's connected Bluetooth. So again, the type of design is available as you do your design to interface to a phone or up to the web or whatever. As far as for, you know, medical providers to monitor if your design is being used properly. It also utilizing our functional safety some of our functional safety software libraries. It aligns with what I mentioned before about, and we've got compilers that are certified to international standards. And then we've got these functional libraries that are safety libraries that help you develop safety code, which you can also integrate as you go to comply with, you know, when your overall design to comply with the FDA or your regulatory body. So John, you want to talk a little bit more about this one?
Ensuring the functional safety of medical device is clearly critical for designer, as this device can impact the health of patients that rely on them. Microchip has developed a library of low-level software routines to address such functional safety concerns. To ensure the syringe pump operate as intended with safe shutdown if any exception or issue arises, this demo implemented a few functional safety routines, such as RAM memory integrity check, CPU register check, CPU program counter check, and the flash memory CRC check. Keep in mind, different type of microcontroller support different levels of functional safety libraries. So please check out our functional safety website for more information, depending on what type of microcontroller you're using. Also, one of the featured products used in this demo is Microchip's MLX90615 inductive sensor. The demo equipped with 2 inductive sensors for measuring the diameter of the syringe and the linear position of the syringe plunger. Syringe pump designer used to choose Hall effect sensor for rotary and linear position detection. We can do anything they can do with Hall effect sensors and be less expensive and more accurate because our inductive sensor don't need a magnet. Okay, back to you, Martin.
Thanks. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is a vibrating mesh nebulizer. This is something that's been really important as far as when you have respiratory problems, maybe asthma, COPD, or maybe some of the effects that are brought on after viruses like COVID or whatever. Some patients need to be treated with medications. People with asthma get treated with albuterol. That's a pretty constant one. And they get some just use a normal pump inhaler, but many times they need a longer treatment with a more metered and delivered flow of medication, like the albuterol, for example. This shows a concept by which we utilize our core independent peripherals to take all the different components that are used in a nebulizer and integrate them all down into one single MCU, which is all that's needed to integrate this. And so again, we're utilizing these to do that. And this basically will be able to deliver a nebulized version of the medicine. We have examples of that. Again, if you go to our website, you can see some pictures. And we have some videos on YouTube as well as on the website too. I think there'll be an email sent on afterwards with links to our website links, as well as to some of the videos on YouTube demonstrating some of these devices. And so, John, you want to go ahead and talk more about some of the concepts around this single chip vibrating mesh nebulizer?
One of the challenges of designing a vibrating mesh nebulizer is to generate such high voltage analog signal that matches the corresponding piezo mesh disc resonant frequency. So from voltage boost to frequency sweep, the main functions of this nebulizer demo are all controlled by a single 8-bit microcontroller with its versatile core independent peripherals or CIPs that are listed on this slide, which means once you press a button to turn it on, the CIPs will take over and handle their tasks in hardware instead of software, with no code or supervision from the CPU to maintain operation. Not only the CPU frees up to do other things, it also provides the total solution with a total system with precision control, fast response, power saving, and a low cost solution. Back to you, Arden.
Okay, thank you. Well, the next one is is a pump that's utilizing a MEMS micro pump, and this is a way to demonstrate how you deliver medication in a slow flow metered application used a lot for various things, not only for drug delivery. We found that there are companies who are thinking about using this for implanting devices and to pull body fluids away, either externally or implantable. Starting with external ways to pull, various body fluids away with problems. If they need to, either transfer or pull fluids away for whatever reason, like blood, for example, whatever. So different concepts would be different pumps, but this shows you how to drive any kind of micro pump. And again, we're utilizing a lot of the techniques of core independent peripherals to reduce the chip count. This particular design, we've also had a lot of other features as far as power management and some other things that help. So we can show ways to do some of those also, as opposed to just a single chip solution. How to use, again, for the power management and other things. So, John, you want to talk briefly about that?
In medical devices for precision control drug delivery, such as infusion pumps or insulin pumps, piezo micro pump offer an attractive alternative to a standard pump. So basically, this micro pump has two piezo plate inside. They turn on off alternatively to drive the gas or liquid through the pump. So one of the challenges in designing piezoelectric micropump driver is a requirement for high supply voltage to be applied to the piezoelectric actuator, typically in the level of hundreds of volts. So this reference design demonstrates the usage of Microchip's high voltage device family, HV9150 high voltage booster and HV513 high voltage interface IC for generating reliable high voltage signals at a specific frequency to drive a piezo micropump. So this demo board can boost the voltage from 3.7 volt, a LiPo rechargeable battery up to 300 volt adjustable. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. One turn on this one is we took that nebulizer design earlier and showed how to do a secure. One thing that's important is in security, another authentication scheme besides web authentication is how do I authenticate an attachment or an accessory or a peripheral. If I have something that I've made a medical device that has something disposable that gets new ones always get used, there's always that threat of somebody counterfeiting that and people buying the counterfeit version and using it with my medical device. Things like, probes, or in this case, we're showing if you have a medicine cup for nebulizer, which it happens to be disposable. So it protects, a medical company's brand name, their quality, legal liability, because sometimes people will use the counterfeit version of the accessory and then blame the main company for it. So there's a lot of protection involved with securing that, and plus the revenue overall that people will continue to buy product, the peripheral or the accessory from the main company that designed the original medical device. So this is a way it shows how this operates. John, anything you want to say about this one?
We just, for this design, we just attach our most popular critical authentication chip SHA-204A to the medicine cup. So every time you slide the cup on, the microcontroller will try to read the key stored in the SHA-204A authentication chip. So only authorized medicine can be used by the nebulizer machine. Okay, that's it.
Cool, I think that's all I got in the presentation. Anyway, back to you, Katie. There you are.
Great, hi. Thanks so much for going over all of that. We've got, I think, about 7 minutes left here, and I know that there were some questions that came in prior to the webinar that you guys were going to address. So we'll let you address those. If you do have questions, you can post them in the Q&A section. We don't have a lot of time to answer them, but we'll get to them if we can. If you do have technical questions that weren't answered today, I'll post a link in a little bit so you can go access that technical support center on Microchip's website. And if you do have any questions about the contest that this is related to, you can post that on the discussion forum or email contest@Hackster.io. And I will also post those links over in the chat in just a second. So I'm gonna let Martin kind of go over some of those questions that we got prior to this.
Okay.
event.
Yeah, we're trying to get through them here quickly. One, it's kind of long, but I think it has to do with basically how do we understand or get help with FDA and the design parameters and the filings and the design files. That's a good question. And if you haven't done medical design before, it's hard to get into the business. If you're doing that, you're already familiar with that. So I assume I'm not sure exactly what the question is, but basically as far as, when it comes to that, if there's an area that you're not familiar with, Microchip has some medical specialist design partners that are well-versed in not only doing medical designs, because they all come from, background of doing medical designs, but they can also help you with, doing the design files, because it's really important with FDA or the CE mark in Europe or whatever, that you start, at the first of your design, keeping all the certification and documents ready. And I mean, how you generate those is really important. If you design it first and then try and go back and document, it usually doesn't work for an FDA submission. So it's important to do that. Again, we have design specialists who do that. They're on the microchip.com/medical website. If you go to the navigation and for design partners, we've got some really good ones in the US and Europe. So that's one way to go as far as getting help with FDA generating design documents during your design phase. Another question has to do with foresee the price point of wearable health devices dropping to the point that, let's see, I guess it has to do with doctors in the UK providing them to the public and monitoring their patients. I can't answer for the UK specifically, but overall the price points are dropping, but it is fairly new. Again, so most of the time these devices are going to be purchased by hospitals, doctors, not directly by the consumer. With the UK, I assume the National Healthcare Service will be purchasing them in that case. So the price points vary, but as far as the manufacturer is concerned, over time they'll be going down because more and more people are getting into this, and that's just kind of a normal thing that happens. The other part of that question was how secure is the data? I think I already kind of talked about the importance of security. It depends on, how secure it needs to be, and it's up to the medical designer, but it is mandated. It's very important, and I mean, highly emphasized, I'll say, by the FDA and Europe and such. So, Zhang, there's a question for you about what kind of temperature sensors are used in these devices. What's the accuracy? I think you may have addressed that somewhat.
Yeah, I mentioned during the presentation. According to, we're using a third-party off-the-shelf infrared temperature sensor from Melexis. As according to their data sheet, the medical version of their temp sensor MLX90615 is factory calibrated with an accuracy of 0.2 plus minus 0.2 degrees Celsius within a narrow object temperature range from 35 to 42 degrees C with resolution of 0.01 degrees C. But keep in mind the measuring distance and the viewing angle of the sensor also affect the measurement, as well as the sensor only see the skin temperature, and you have to develop this algorithm to convert the skin temperature to core temperature. That also can impact the total system accuracy.
Okay, thanks. There's another one about the, let's see. No, I think that has been answered. It looks like the rest of the questions have some kind of along the lines of support and getting help. So again, we mentioned a couple different things that are going on as far as support is concerned. The first thing we have is the, let me see. Let me look at some of these, make sure I'm covering that. Yeah, so there's obviously microchip.com/medical, and that's an important resource. Again, to get the download files for these designs, you go there, and if you scroll down about halfway down the page, there'll be different links for medical devices. They'll take you to a link that talks about the devices and some microchip parts and things. And there'll usually be a red button on the side that says download the design files. And you go to a page that has some information on the demo and the design files. Additional support, I think, is going to be sent out. The link for our microchip support, I think, will be sent out in a link to contact our corporate applications engineering staff with questions about different parts and such. And so that's basically, again, the medical aspect of the website. Corporate applications engineering can help you with parts. And I think that covers about everything because we're just about out of time anyway. So back to you, Katie.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I posted the links that Martin just talked about in the chat there, so you can grab those if you don't have them. And as he mentioned, we will be sending out an email with the recording of this event, as well as some of those links and to the demos that were showed today, as well as the links to support and everything as well. So that you'll probably get that early next week. And thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate Martin and Zhang being here and taking their time to show us around. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.